solved quickly, or is it the type of incident that's going to require a great deal of time and resources to complete? Some investigations involve the use of skills and equipment that requires the assistance of highly trained professional people. We must keep the roles of the security officer and the police clearly separated in the investigation. The police are there to represent the people when a crime has occurred. We're there to represent our company or client when the incident could have a potential to cause harm to them or their interests. Our methods may serve both ends and may even be the same in some cases, but our roles can never be allowed to be at cross purposes. Now, as security practitioners, we're talking to people all the time. Conversation with others is a large part of what we do. During an investigation, we will be required to use those same people skills that serve us so well on the job in a more focused way than we normally would. We're attempting to put a whole bunch of information together in a logical way so we can determine what happened in a specific moment in time. That calls for the use of some specialized interviewing skills if we're going to do it the right way. First, be pleasant. Regardless of their status, witness, complainant, victim, etc., the person you're talking to is doing you a favor by having the conversation with you in the first place. Remember, you're not investigating the crime of the century. Be human, approachable, and easy to talk to. You'll get more information that way. Ask open-ended questions. An open-ended question is one that someone cannot answer with a yes or no. It's open-ended when they have to explain their answer to you. Don't ask them if they saw the incident. That is a yes or no response. Ask them to tell you what they saw. That's being open-ended. Also, don't be afraid of silence. If someone takes a few moments before they answer your question, don't jump in with another question right away. Give them time to think. They're dealing with an authority figure after all, and they could be nervous, frightened, embarrassed, or even confused. So wait a bit before you move on, and don't feel like you have to fill silence with noise. Now is the time to be patient. Also, use the long pause to get more information. Generally, most people will tell you more. Try to make the interview as private as you can. This can be very difficult in a busy or noisy work environment. You should find a quiet spot to question the person. They need to feel that you're listening to what they have to say and are not distracted. You may even want to tell the dispatch center that you'll be off the air for a few minutes so that you're not interrupted by the radio as well. Use a three-step method when you're taking your field notes of the interview. If you stand in front of someone with a pencil and a notepad looking like you're going to write down everything they say, you're going to intimidate them. You want it to feel more like a conversation. The three-step method works like this. First step, let them tell you the whole story. No pen, no notepad. Just stand there and listen and nod approvingly. Encourage them to talk by saying things like, go on, or I see. Don't let your face show any shock or disgust or humor about what they're telling you. Just listen attentively. Second step, when they have finished, tell them that you appreciate their candor and that they have some really great information. Then explain that you're going to have to write a report about the incident while you get your pencil and notepad out of your pocket. Ask them to tell you one more time and tell them you're going to take some notes so that you don't miss anything. When you introduce the pencil and pad in this way, it's not intimidating at all. It's just you doing your job. Since they just told you what happened, they don't feel that it's an interview anymore. They're just talking to you now. Let them tell the story again and take careful notes. You may even ask them to repeat certain parts so that you get things exactly right. Your witness has the feeling that they're in control of the interview. That's exactly what you want. Third step, when they're done, tell them that you want to make sure that you got the information right. Read them your notes. Now you're talking and they're listening. This is the time that they'll make a few corrections and possibly even a few additions when they hear the information coming from you and remember something perhaps that they'd forgotten. At the end of the three-step process, the interviewee walks away with a feeling that they've made a contribution and that you've done a professional job. You have the advantage of a thorough interview and the ability to tell others that you actually talked to the person about the incident 3 times. You have no idea how much a judge appreciates this. It adds validity and credibility to your interview. Thank the person for their help. You have to leave the door open for a possible second or even third interview. If you have a business card, make sure that they get one and always return their call as quickly as possible. Remember, interviewing is questioning with a purpose. They have the information that you need and they may not be in a real big hurry to tell you what they know. It's more than just a conversation. If you approach it with a plan in mind, it will be much more effective. Evidence can be defined as anything that tends to prove or disprove an alleged fact. The detective shows on television and the movies would have us believe that evidence is only the stuff that is used to put the bad guy in jail. That's only partially true. Evidence can also eliminate someone as a suspect. The thing that we need to remember about evidence is this: it is what it is, not what we want it to be. We also need to remember that evidence is a very fragile commodity. It is easily destroyed or altered and can never be put back the way that it once was once it's been moved. That's why the protection of evidence that is at the scene is so very important to the investigation. But in order to protect it, you have to know what it is. Basically, evidence comes to us in 3 forms: physical, circumstantial, and direct. Physical evidence consists of those things that we can study or look at from the crime scene. It can connect the perpetrator to the scene, the victim to the scene, even witnesses to the scene. It is anything physical in nature that we can analyze and study. That would include fingerprints, tool impressions, glass, hair, fibers, blood, soil, weapons, tools, and any other physical object associated with the scene. The neat aspect of physical evidence and the thing that makes it so useful in court is that it is what it is. Properly gathered and protected, we can show it to a judge or a jury in the same state that we found it. It speaks for itself in the investigation of the case. Circumstantial evidence consists of those conditions and situations associated with the scene or the incident that we can verify from an independent source. For example, it either was or wasn't raining at the time of the incident. It was or wasn't dark when the incident happened. The suspect's whereabouts either can or cannot be verified. The suspect either had or did not have access to the area. An insurance policy either was or wasn't in effect at the time of the incident. These are all examples of circumstantial evidence. The amount and type of circumstantial evidence will vary with the type of incident that you're investigating. Direct evidence is also called eyewitness testimony. Of the 3 types, this is the one that is the easiest to attack in a court of law. It is also the type of evidence that will disappear if we don't talk to the witnesses as soon as possible after the incident. Time will cause people to forget details. Conversations with others will alter the sequence of event. Most people do not really tell us what they saw. They tell us what they think they saw based on their own background and experience. This is why witnesses can be so easy to cross up in court. The important thing to remember about evidence is what is called the cumulative effect. One piece of evidence all by itself may not look like much to go on, but when you take all the evidence and put it together in one place, the accumulation of the facts may tell the story very clearly. A good investigator always looks for corroborative evidence or evidence which reinforces other evidence. This is one reason why no piece of evidence should be overlooked. The collection and the preservation of evidence at the incident scene are tasks rightfully left to the professionals. That does not mean that a security officer does not have a role to play in the protection of evidence. There must be evidence for the investigators to gather when they do show up. Your task is simply to protect the incident scene as best you can until they arrive. The following steps will help you to do that. First, establish the scene perimeter as quickly as you can. Once the injured have been treated and taken from the area, your focus must be on preserving the integrity of the scene. You can use a natural boundary like a fence or a wall, or you can create a boundary with barrier tape, barricades, ladders, rope. Anything that you can find can be used to keep people away from the scene. One enterprising security officer even used chairs laid down with the legs facing upward to keep people from an incident scene in a cafeteria. Use whatever works. Get the people out of the scene who do not have a right or a need to be there. Basically, that means everyone but the police or the investigators assigned to the incident. That includes supervisory staff and even administrators in some instances. Status within the company does not give anyone the right to destroy or alter evidence. Besides, police officers and judges really don't care who someone thinks they are in a situation like this. Be diplomatic, but get the people out of there. Take chronological notes about what happens at the scene and when. When did ambulances arrive? When were the police or the investigators called, and when did they get there? When did the crime scene unit arrive? When did you call your supervisor? Anything that you think has even a remote connection to the incident and the events surrounding it should be written into your notes. Assist the investigators as much as you can. If you are the first officer there, you have more information about the incident than anyone else. Make sure that you let the investigators and the police see your notes, but don't give them away. Give them copies if they need it. Be ready to assist in whatever way you can, but stay within the scope of your training and your job. At your first opportunity, sit down and write a detailed report about what happened at the scene. Don't leave anything out, and don't assume that someone else took care of recording something. Nothing happened at the scene if it's not written down. Remember that. The report is going to be the thing that draws all the evidence and all the events into one neat package for others to review. Be thorough and be accurate. When an item is identified and seized as potential evidence from an incident scene, it has the ultimate goal of being used in some type of trial or official inquiry. It's going to be used to prove or disprove an alleged fact. That means that the integrity of the piece of evidence is going to be subject to a great deal of scrutiny. If we're going to say that it represents something that could be used to put an individual in jail or dismiss someone from their job, we had better be able to prove that it has been properly safeguarded. That means that we're going to have to be able to prove that we have had control of the item from the time we seized it until the time we brought it into court. No gaps, no time periods where it was out of our control. The document used to do that is called a chain of custody. If you are the one who finds a piece of evidence, you will be required to sign it over to the investigator. The investigator will sign it over to an evidence tech. The evidence tech may sign it over to a crime lab tech. The crime lab tech may sign it back over to the investigator. The investigator may then sign the item over to an evidence custodian who will sign it into an evidence log and then place it in a vault. It may remain in the vault until the day of the trial and then be signed over from the evidence custodian to the investigator to take it to court. No gaps, no time periods where we did not know exactly where the evidence was and who had direct control over it. That's how a chain of custody is supposed to work. If we don't take the time to do these things properly, the attorney or other person who is representing the accused will find it easy to allege that the evidence has been tampered with or altered while in our control. If the judge or hearing officer is not convinced that this could not have reasonably happened, we could lose the use of that item of evidence. It doesn't take very much convincing to establish reasonable doubt. The idea of sitting in front of a judge and/or jury and giving testimony about an incident can cause the untrained person to break into a cold sweat. But if we're realistic about the job that we're doing, the possibility of having to testify in court is real and very probable. It is the natural conclusion to a successful and thorough investigation. Someone, somewhere, is going to have to look at the evidence that we have gathered and make a determination about who is responsible for causing the incident. It was the point of the whole investigation from the very beginning. Despite what you see in the media, there is no danger lurking in a courtroom. The case in question is not even yours to win or lose. Your function is the same as when you did the investigation. You're there to relay the facts to the person who must make the ultimate decision. You will not convict or exonerate, the facts will. Doing a good job in a courtroom revolves around three concepts. They are preparation, appearance, and attitude. A word of note, in many instances, you will make an appearance at a disciplinary hearing or a court hearing. Remember, the same three rules apply: preparation, appearance, and attitude. You get ready to go to court by doing your homework. That consists of doing the following things before the court date arrives. First, review your notes. Look at the information that you recorded at the scene and refresh your memory. Get back to that time and place as much as you can. Review your report. The attorneys have read it, and so has the judge. You need to reacquaint yourself with the contents of the report that you wrote. Review the other reports too. Get up to speed about the whole case so you can get a better picture of your place in it. Look at the evidence list too. You'll get a good idea about what to expect on the witness stand. Talk with the attorney representing your side. That will usually be the prosecutor for the state. Talk about potential testimony and lines of questioning. Ask questions about things that you're unsure of. Get to the courthouse early. Make sure that you're ready to go at the prescribed time. There's no excuse for being late to court. Now a word about appearance. Dress the part. If you're told to wear your uniform, make sure that it's clean and pressed. If you're told to wear civilian clothes, that means a coat and a tie for men and business-like attire for women. Don't show up for court dressed in casual clothing. It sends a message to the judge and jury that you're not taking the proceedings seriously. When called, walk into the courtroom in an erect posture and stand straight when you take the oath. Place your left hand on the Bible and make sure your right hand is raised above the shoulder, palm open and hand flat. Don't slouch or lean on anything. And when you're asked if you swear to tell the truth and the whole truth by the court officer, say, "I do," like you mean it. Take your seat in the witness chair and sit up straight. The prosecuting attorney will ask you questions first. This is called direct examination. Look at the attorney when he or she talks to you and answer the questions that they ask of you to the jury or the judge if this is a bench trial. The defense attorney will ask you questions next. This is called cross-examination. Keep the following things in mind when being cross-examined by the defense attorney. Pause briefly, about 2 seconds, before answering their questions. This gives the prosecutor time to object. If an objection is made, stop talking and wait to be asked to answer the question again. Answer the questions to the judge or the jury, not to the defense attorney. The people you are trying to convince are either the jury or the bench. Don't get angry. The attorney does not hate you. He or she is just doing their job. Never take what happens in a courtroom personally. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It's just a part of the workings of the trial. Besides, if the jury thinks that the attorney is picking on you, it makes your case stronger. If you don't understand a question, ask to have it repeated. If you still don't understand, tell the judge you don't understand. The judge will then have the defense attorney rephrase the question most of the time. If you're asked to answer a question with a yes or a no, and you can't answer the question in that manner, turn to the judge. Tell him you can't answer the question with a yes or a no, and that you have to explain your answer. Usually, the judge will tell the attorney to rephrase the question. In any event, always do what the judge tells you to do in a courtroom. Don't argue with an attorney. You'll lose that argument every time. Be polite. Call the defense attorney sir or ma'am, and always be polite, even if they're not. When you're dismissed from the witness stand, leave the courtroom. There is no need for you to stand around or sit in the back to see what happens. You'll look like a vulture, and the jury will notice. Besides, you've done your job. The rest is up to others. If you're not sure if you'll be called back, ask the prosecuting attorney if you should stay close by. They will tell you what to do. When a verdict is reached, you should not show any emotion at all. Don't look happy about a conviction or angry about an acquittal. Your function was to do just what you did. The judge or the jury heard the facts and decided the case based upon all the evidence. The case was never yours to win or lose. Always remember that. If you have the time, it's always a good idea to go to another courtroom and watch the proceedings there. If you take the time to study what goes on in the court, you'll get that much better at giving testimony when your turn comes around again. Well, that's our program on investigations. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on PSTN. If everything that could potentially happen during the course of a workday could be handled easily by the person closest to the actual problem, there would be very little need for us. In the real world, fortunately for us, that's not the case. Hello, and welcome to the PSTN Basic Security Officer Training Series. I'm Bill Jackson. When something strange or bizarre or frightening or possibly even criminal happens, we get the call. We're the ones who are expected to deal with those situations and circumstances that no one else really knows what to do with. Sometimes the call is serious. Sometimes downright funny. Sometimes the call can be potentially very dangerous. We have to be ready to handle all the various forms that a call for service might take. In addition to handling the unknown factors of a call, we also need to be mindful of the fact that we are doing our jobs in an open arena. Everyone is going to be watching us to see how the call is handled. We need to be ready, and we need to be responsive. Like it or not, the people who we protect are going to be counting on us. Let's be ready. You don't start a job with an understanding of what you need to do to handle the job properly. Knowing what to do comes from experience and training. You, personally, need to make sure that you get the training and experience to handle whatever the job might throw your way. At an absolute minimum, you need to know something about the following things. You must know about the emergency procedures that are set in place. Some facilities have very simple response plans, and some can be very complex and elaborate. You need to know what you have to work with when the need arises. This basic knowledge also has to be in place before the event happens. You'll not have the time to check the manual or review a procedure when you are face to face with a big problem. Get the basics mastered and use the manual to fill in the blanks and double check what has already been started. Where is your emergency equipment located and how is it used? The best equipment in the world is useless junk if no one knows how to make it go. And knowing how to make it work properly doesn't mean anything if you can't find it when you need it. Hopefully, the equipment is placed in such a way as to be accessible in a crisis. Hopefully, someone has taken the responsibility to make sure that the equipment is in proper working condition and ready for immediate use. Even if this task is not assigned to you, it is still in your best interest to check and make sure that the stuff you need is where it's supposed to be when the call comes in. You are the one who's going to be on the line. What are your evacuation routes and evacuation procedures? Once again, this is one of those things that you need to check out for yourself. Don't rely on a map either. Walk through the route and read through the procedures to make sure that it still works. Work sites are constantly being remodeled and changed. Floor plans get altered and exits and entrances get moved. Unfortunately, many times this isn't factored into the evacuation plan until a crisis happens. What are your traffic control and crowd control procedures? Once you decide that you need to move vehicles or people, what are you going to do with them? How are you going to get them where you want them to go, and what happens to them once they get there? All of these questions need to be decided before the emergency happens. Is the route really usable? What happens if the route is a part of the emergency scene? You need to have alternatives already in the plan and backup plans for your backup plans. Playing the what-if game can help in making and testing plans. Emergencies and unusual events have a tendency to attract attention and crowds. What plans exist in your work site to deal with these large gatherings of people? Remember, a crowd mentality is a bit different from the thought process of a single individual. People in crowds lose their sense of individual accountability. They do what the crowd does. Does your organization have training for dealing with groups and potential mobs? What do the policies and procedures have to say about this aspect of the job? Communications procedures need to be planned out to the highest degree possible. If you have an emergency channel, you need to know when and how to use it. Alternative means of communications may also have to be used. If a call-up list exists, you need to know where it is and when you can activate it. What is your level of first aid training and how much equipment do you have to work with in an emergency situation? Are you certified in CPR? As a security practitioner, you need to understand that you can get into a great deal of trouble if you try to handle a first aid emergency without proper training or certification. Good Samaritan laws will only protect you to a certain extent of your actions and skills. All of these areas and a few more are part of a planned response to an emergency situation. We'll help with some of the basic information. The rest is up to you. Directing and controlling traffic can be a very dangerous job. You're going to be out there in the middle of an intersection with cars and trucks going past you at various speeds. Understanding the basics will help. Roadway position is critical. You have to be in a place where you can be seen. Find a place as close to the center of the intersection as you can while still being as safe as possible. If the center is just too busy or dangerous, you may have to take up a position off to the side of the intersection about 2 or 3 feet from the curb. When you aren't giving traffic control signals, don't move around. Keep your hands at your sides so that a gesture cannot be mistaken for a signal. It's also strongly suggested that you wear a high visibility vest or other outer garment so that you can be readily identified as being the one in control of the intersection. blaze orange or bright yellow colors work the best. Be friendly but firm. This is your intersection to control, and the drivers are going to do what you tell them to do. You have to send a non-verbal message that non-compliance is not an option. Hand signals are basic but very important. Make sure they are clear and crisp and easy to see. There's no need for wild movements or exotic gestures. Improper hand signals might look entertaining to a bystander, but they can be very confusing to a motorist in traffic. Stop signals are done in the following manner. Stand with your shoulders parallel to the flow of traffic. Select the vehicle that you want to stop. Look directly at the driver. With your arm fully extended, point at him with your index finger. Stay that way until you know the driver sees you. Raise your hand so that the palm is extended toward the driver. Hold that position until the driver sees it. Then, raise your hand slightly so that the palm is still facing the driver and the arm is slightly bent at the elbow. The same procedure is done with the other hand to stop traffic coming from the other direction. Once all traffic in both directions has stopped, you can turn and pay attention to the cars going the other directions. Starting traffic is done in the following manner. Parallel with the flow, once again, turn your head to the waiting traffic and point at the lead car driver. Once you have the driver's attention, turn the palm of your hand inward and bring the hand up and across the front of your chin, bending your arm at the elbow. Once traffic starts to move, you should drop your arm to your side and repeat the procedure for the traffic going the opposite direction. Whistles are a good tool to use when directing traffic, as long as they're not overused. One long, loud blast is used to get a motorist's attention. 2 short blasts are used to give warning of turning vehicles and possible hazards. When letting vehicles turn, remember that you must stop the traffic in the lane that the vehicle is going prior to signaling the turning car to proceed. The only way you can get good at directing traffic is to practice and critique each practice. A traffic accident can be something as simple as a minor fender bender or as serious as a fatality. For the simple accidents, you'll need to follow your department guidelines about filing the proper reports. For the more serious types of accidents, the proper steps are as follows. Get to the scene as quickly and safely as possible. You won't be much help if you're involved in another accident while you're responding to this one. Park your car in such a way that you protect the scene and allow your vehicle to be seen by others approaching the area. Assist the injured as quickly as possible. Remember, people come first. Give first aid in keeping with your training and ability, and get the ambulance started your way as soon as possible. Get the police notified as soon as possible, too. When the injured have been cared for, start directing traffic around the scene. You're trying to protect property and prevent further injury. Position yourself in an area where you can be seen and give clear hand signals to drivers. Be careful. Sometimes people are too busy looking at the accident and are not looking out for you. When the police arrive, ask if there's anything you can do to assist. You may be asked to continue to direct traffic or even to hold the end of a tape measure. Do what you can to assist. Keep the dispatcher informed of your location and assignment. When the police have finished and the scene has been cleared, contact the appropriate people to come out and clean up the area of broken glass or potentially dangerous debris on the roadway. When the scene has been cleared, sit down someplace quiet and start your report. An incident is defined as anything that happens at the work site that is going to require an investigation of some type to determine cause. It might be a criminal act, it might not. It could be a simple slip and fall on a staircase, or it could be a small chemical spill. Once again, as with traffic accidents, small incidents can be handled by following the guidelines established by the company or the organization. We'll need to focus on those incidents where the police or some other investigative agency is going to be called to conduct a formal investigation. If that's the case, follow these basic steps. First, get to the scene as quickly and as safely as possible. Time is of the essence here. There is evidence at the scene that can be destroyed very quickly. When you get there, tend to the injured. Remember, people first. When the injured have been properly dealt with, it's time to secure the scene as quickly and as completely as possible. Get some backup from other security officers if they're available, or from trusted employees if they're around. Set up a perimeter around the immediate scene and keep people out. If you have to, ask for help from a supervisor to get people cleared from the area. Evidence is as fragile as eggshells, and we do not want people walking around the incident scene. Clear them out as efficiently and quickly as you can. Protect the scene until the investigators get there. When the investigators arrive, tell them all you know about the incident and the scene itself. Try not to leave anything out. Let the investigator decide if the information is relevant or not. Do not leave the scene until the investigators